One of the cheapest and easiest ways for you to lower your estate taxes is a bypass marital trust, also sometimes called an AB trust. So right now, the estate tax law allows you to pass and your spouse to pass $5 million each on estate tax free to your heirs. 20 years ago, it was $650,000, and then it went to $1 million, then it went to nothing. In 2010, you could pass any amount you wanted on. And it's expected by most that that's going to come down to be several, $3–4 million range. And that could change. It's bounced around quite a bit, more than just about any other tax legislation that I've paid attention to. So we're going to look at one of the strategies and kind of how that works and how much money it would save you to have that. If you have a very big net worth, or if you're a growing business and your net worth is increasing, this is one of the strategies that you want to be looking at. Now, I'll mention, before we look at this, just in brevity, is if you have done your estate planning and you went to an attorney and you got a living trust for your family, a revocable living trust, the reality is most of them do not have provision for this. And it may not need it based upon your net worth, but don't assume that because you have a trust that you have a marital bypass trust, okay? They're two separate things, and one can be embedded in the other and a part of the plan, but most people do not come into my office anyway, of the dozens that I've looked at just in the last couple of years, with that provision written into it. It's less common than typical. So you want to look if you have a growing net worth, growing fast, or a big net worth into the multi-millions, or you expect it to be there. This is something that you ought to have on your to-do list in the near future. Let's take a look at some of the, how this pencils out in savings on your taxes. Okay, so let's look at some of the famous people that you might know that died with lots of tax and costs associated with their estates. Marilyn Monroe, 55% of her estate went to taxes and costs. Elvis Presley, 73%, $10 million estate. His heirs ended up with, 2.7 million of that. Ogden Mills, this one always gets me, Secretary of State, $9.5 million estate, and somehow was just too busy to take a look at his own state and do some planning. Ended up losing 60 cents on the dollar because of lack of planning. Henry Kaiser, a massively successful industrialist, lost 44%. What's interesting is, one of his heirs, Henry Jr., got pretty smart, did some planning, passed on a $55 million estate with only $1 million in cost. Again, contrast that to his father, $5.5 million estate, passing on $2.5 million, roughly $2.8 million, passing on 44% down to 2%. And then finally, Rockefeller Sr., 64% lost in estate and tax costs. So Rockefeller Jr., he got smart as well after he had received an inheritance from his father. Was able to get that down to 16% with some planning, with some proactive planning. So one of the easy, cheap coupons that you get from the IRS is a credit shelter trust. Some people call it a bypass trust, a marital trust, marital exemption trust. Basically, it's a trust where half of the estate of a married couple goes in, and it's as if you get a coupon right now for $5 million in 2012, 2011. But that's subject to change. A lot of people say it's going to change. It's probably going to be down at around $3.5 million. We'll of course update this when that happens. But right now, if you did nothing and you died with a $10 million estate, the first $5 million would pass estate tax free. But that next $5 million, if it were not in a bypass trust, some kind of marital trust for the health, education, maintenance support of the surviving heirs, including the surviving spouse, of course, almost $2 million, $1.75 million would be taxed at death, versus you get maybe at the most a $1,500 trust, which a lot of people get them done. I think mine was $500. Credit shelter bypass trust, no taxes due. Now, where can you spend $500, $1,000, maybe $1,500 and save $1.75 million in taxes? I don't know anywhere else that can be done. So this is obviously something that takes planning. Usually it's, you know, $2,000 to $4,000 to set something like this up. It's the type of thing where you want to look at several different ways to slice this. You know, there's various different aspects to the charitable remainder trust that we didn't have time today to get into. But if you're going to be doing something this extensive in planning, it's worth spending several hours to make sure that you do it right and you look at all the caveats and the options that are available with this planning tool.